Hey, David here with Guide Recommended. I'm going to tie what's probably in the top 5 dry flies that I have in my fly box. And I got this thought about what I actually tie and what I actually buy. Something like the elk hair, super simple to tie. I don't feel so bad about losing them. And I love fishing in those bushy rivers and streams. I tie elk hair, so size 14s to 18s. Bigger sizes I'll use as my dry fly in a dropper setup. And to kind of help this out, I got a link in the description to PDF with the materials list and a guide how to fly fish with the elk hair caddis. So check out that link, check out that article, but stay tuned for tying the elk hair caddis. Thanks. All right, next up we're gonna jump into it. Elk hair caddis. So I fish a lot of these things. What do we need? Our size 14 dry fly hook. I tie this in 16s and 18s as well. Our brown number 8 thread. Obviously our elk hair. Our dubbing, I'm going to probably use a little bit of a lighter dubbing just because I have the pack open. Some gold, fine gold wire. And, one of the funnest things, we get to use some quality hackle this time around. So some ginger hackle to wind onto the fly. All right, a little bit of a departure from what we've done before. We're going to be putting some thread up by our eye, because when we wrap the elk hair, when we tie it on, it needs something to hold on to. All right, so next in is our fine gold wire. Now you'll see I'm at the halfway point. I start wrapping this in right now, and then I will be dubbing over this. All right, so I'm stopping back at about my barb. Next in is our hackle. So I like to prep this just a little bit by pulling those fibers up, cutting a little bit off to each side, wrapping this in, getting our dubbing. You do not need much. I don't like my elk hairs with much dubbing, so there's not much there. I'm actually going to use about half of that. In fact, a little bit less than that. So there's my dubbing. Spin this onto our thread. A very fine rope, if you can see that, very fine application. Easy to get too much dubbing on this fly and kind of mess it up. All right. All right, we're going to dub it about to the halfway point. A little bit past our halfway. So right about there, so I'm going to go back a little bit and then forward. All right, we got our dubbing in. Next is our hackle. Don't yank on this hard. Don't yank hard. Gently wrap it. If it's going to break, it breaks right at that initial spin on. A nice little bit of hackle. All right. Again, note how much room I have at the front of that fly. Our elk hair is going to take up a lot of that room. Now, this application of gold wire, a lot of times I'll do the reverse, particularly on a bigger fly like a woolly bugger or a streamer. With the elk hair, I actually go with the wrapping of the hackle you'll lay down a whole bunch of this hackle if you go reverse, and that's not what we want to do. All right, base of our scissors. Okay, time to have some fun with our elk hair. So pinch off, I'm going to say a heavy toothpick, a quarter of a pencil, right? Grab it by the tip area, and you need to pull this fuzz out in a couple of the short hairs. It doesn't stack well with those in there. Get your hair stacker, drop it in, tap. Right. Now, something to consider. Have your thread, don't have it starting out by the eye. Have it back close to where your hackle and your dubbing all ended. Double check we're looking good. A little bit longer than the end of the hook. All right, so measuring it in place. Switch hands. A firm pinch of onto the elk hair. Up, over, loose, up, over, loose, pull up, holding everything in place. A lot of times I'll actually tip it back towards me. All right, wrap it down. And then as I wrap towards the tail, loose wraps, tighten as I go forward. I like to pull up, wrap here. If you can, pull in, up, over. All right. Now we're in a position to cut our head. All right. At this point, I like to put a half hitch in. Okay. Now let's get our whip finish. Tighten. Elk hair is done. Let's put some. So that's the elk hair caddis. I would love it if you would check out the 2 links I've got in the description, right? We already talked about one that's the material list with the download on my blog article. The other one is a link to my fly tying class. It's free, just a link to it. You go there. I'm slowly building this up, right? It takes you from, you know, the basics, the definitions, right? The tools, the knots, the materials, and then just like tying this fly, we get into tying flies that catch fish. So subscribe to stay tuned and look for good things like product reviews, fly tying, and a little bit of catching fish. Thanks.